Now to the ongoing investigation into the origins of the COVID virus. House Republicans announced this week that Anthony Fauci, the controversial former chief White House medical advisor, will testify before Congress early next year. Almost 4 years since the COVID outbreak shut down much of the country, and we still don't have a clear answer about China's role in the pandemic and about whether our government's heavy-handed approach was worth the pain. We're joined now by Representative Brad Wenstrup, Republican of Ohio, who chairs the committee that will question Dr. Fauci. Congressman Wenstrup, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on Centerpoint.
Glad to be with you. Thank you. And thanks for the topic.
Very interesting topic. You said it's time for Dr. Fauci to confront the facts. What's the most important thing that you want to hear from him?
Well, I want to hear some answers to a lot of questions, and many of them just come up to why. You know, when we started this investigation, it was an after-action review, lessons learned. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? And certainly looking at the origins of COVID. And that's the part that seems to be the most perplexing to the American people is why would Dr. Fauci and others not want to have a scientific debate on this topic? And so it's not only a lack of transparency from China, which we should grow to expect that from China, but now we've seen this within our own government. And the stalling has been unbelievable as we try to get answers. So we're glad to have him coming in into early January. We have him for 2 days, and then he's agreed to also an open hearing. But we've learned a lot along the way during this investigation. And so the big question on so many things is why? Why would you want to steer this to say, oh, this definitely came from nature? Why would you want to have scientists out there put their reputations on the line to come out and try and steer the country on the nature idea when there's so much evidence that said this likely came from the lab, could have come from the lab? And certainly we will talk about vaccine mandates. Look, Dr. Fauci painted himself as the face of science involving COVID and all things COVID. And there's a lot of experts out there that have expertise that he doesn't have. And so I think that from a public health perspective, America needed really to be hearing from the doctors that are treating COVID patients, not necessarily the guy in the lab and certainly not the politician.
Senator Rand Paul, he recently said that Dr. Fauci should go to jail for the alleged cover-up and lying of, like you said, the origins of the virus and China's role. This is a pretty important question. Do you think there was a potential crime here, Congressman?
Well, you know, that remains to be seen because what are the motives for some of the decisions? Are they criminal? I don't know about that. They may certainly be political or personal. And I think those are questions that everyone's asking. And some indications would say, yeah, you don't want to say this came from the lab because you've been funding this type of research. So if it came from nature, then your hands are clean. But otherwise, you may have a direct connection to one of the worst pandemics that the world has ever seen. And Dr. Fauci, by his own admission, and many articles he wrote going back to 2011, interviews 2012, he said he's all for this type of research, which would make viruses more infectious. Their idea was, if they can make it, then they may be able to find the cure, and wouldn't that be great? But he was even asked in 2012 about the risk of a pandemic forming because of this type of research, and he felt that the benefits outweigh the risk. Those were his quotes. So these are things that we want to ask him about. You know, when it comes to anything criminal, I know one thing is you can charge somebody with contempt of Congress and lying to Congress. And so those are some of the things that firsthand that may come out of this committee if we're not getting the proper responses from people or truthful responses.
Well, you have also called on former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to testify regarding all of those deaths in the nursing homes in the state of New York when it spread like wildfire. Congressman, where is the accountability for powerful people like this, especially when your own mother wasn't trapped in those nursing homes at the time these deaths were taking place?
Yeah, this has been really revolting, and he's resisting it at every front as we're trying to get him to come in. We're gathering a lot of information and talking to the players underneath him that also tried to cover up what was done in the nursing homes. It's just outlandish in America today. how many people can get away with some things that are so wrong. First of all, why is a governor making these decisions? Second of all, I can tell you as a physician that treats a lot of infections, it's the absolute 100% wrong thing to do to take somebody who's infectious and contagious and put them in with the most vulnerable people. You isolate. We had the naval ship out there to put people on. He refused to do that. He has a lot of explaining to do. And what's even more appalling is I understand he's thinking about running for mayor of New York or for governor again. It is unbelievable. He needs to be held accountable just like anyone else. And there's a lot of angry people that lost loved ones as a result of these actions. And I don't know, and I don't understand for the life of me why those decisions were made.
Okay, we will be watching those hearings coming up in January. Once again, we appreciate you joining us, Congressman Brad Wenstrup of Ohio. Thank you.
Anytime, Joe.